Hey guys, welcome back to Mystifying Miracles. My name is Kristen. We go over stories every week, twice a week, always true stories with sometimes mysterious or terrifying sometimes elements, but they always end on a good note because there's always at least one miracle in them. So if that sounds exciting to you or interesting, at least a little, follow along and we're going to get started here. On August 25th, 2005, is when Johan Otter and his daughter Jenna set out on a hiking trip. And they were going because Jenna had just turned 18, graduated high school, and that's what she wanted to do to celebrate. And they were hiking for about 90 minutes through the Montana's Glacier National Park. And that's when something very terrifying occurred. They were walking around this little bend in the trail at the time throughout the park, and that's when they ran into a 400-pound grizzly bear, and she had two of her cubs with her. You know that term mama bear? Oh yeah. So they're very territorial and protective of their cubs, as any mother would be. And so it was about to be a pretty scary experience for the two of them. A quote from Johan: "Here we are on an upward sloping leg of Grinnell Glacier Trail, rock cliffs on the right and a vertical drop on the left, and a grizzly bear in my left thigh." The reason why he said in his left thigh is because as soon as they came around that bend, there she was with her cubs, and the attack started. And so at that point in time, the mama bear, she was chomping down on Johan's thigh and, attacking them. So he's wanting, first of all, to protect his daughter. Secondly, he's like, oh my gosh, where do we go? There's not much choice. There's a cliff here. He had to do split-second decision. They said that the attack was going on for about 5 or so minutes, and the bear actually began to bite down and lash out and try to get to his daughter, Jenna. The only thing to do was to try to run, but there wasn't much area to run, right? So again, that split-second decision, they both went over the cliff because that was all they could do to try to get away from this situation. And so it said that the cliff, of course, was rocky, and it was about 70 feet that they were falling and rolling and getting injured. And, you might think, well, this sucks, but the actual bear started following them over and down the cliff. As they're, tumbling, it's going down just as fast right after them, and it's pouncing on them repeatedly, as this is happening over the cliff. And at one point, Johan said that he could feel the bear's actual teeth just biting down on his skull during this commotion. Unfortunately, he said that he could feel it. It was tearing away at his scalp. And as all this was going on, he's still conscious. He's yelling at his daughter, who's a little bit ahead of him, get off the trail, get off the trail. He wants her to take cover any way she can in order to protect. He was willing to take that attack so as long as his daughter was safe. And when Jenna did this, she tried to hide behind some bushes. It actually attracted the grizzly bear's attention. So then the grizzly bear stopped attacking her dad and started to go after Jenna. And she had ducked down into a fetal position behind a bush as the bear was coming after her. And she also had a quote that I found. She says, "It grabbed my face and tore me this way. Then it grabbed my shoulder and tore me the other way." Oh my gosh, that's terrifying. I don't even know. Sometimes these stories, I'm like, it's a bit squeamish, but my goodness. So Jenna remembers just seeing blood everywhere. Coming from herself. And at that point, she decided, I found some reports that it said she played dead. That's all she could do, especially after tumbling off a 70-foot cliff, right? So she played dead, and that is when, thank goodness, the mama bear and her cubs decided to leave and take off. Maybe the bear thought okay, I did what I, came to do to protect my cubs. Looks like they're dead, or at least injured enough, so I don't know. It's a bear, right? I'm just assuming. I don't know what's going on in the bear's mind, but thank goodness she took off and left. All in all, Jenna's injuries included 2 back fractures, gashes on her shoulders, a torn lower lip and chin, and Johan's injuries, they were more extensive and almost fatal. 80% of his head was degloved. I've never heard that term. In all the years I was, in the nursing field years ago, I'd never heard that. I was like, what is degloved? But it means that the bear tore his scalp from the skull, like during the attack. So that's what that means. And the doctors actually found tooth marks in Johan's skull. And they said that he also had 3 shattered ribs, 6 fractured vertebrae. It was called a hangman's fracture. And it was actually a little side note. They said that Christopher Reeve, he also suffered the same hangman fracture when he, years ago fell off his horse. So he also had a torn muscle in his right eye. And after the fact, doctors, they said that the bear's teeth, all the bear had to do was barely chomp down a little harder or a little more, and it would have penetrated Johan's brain. Thank goodness, whatever made it stop or bite somewhere else in that split second of a moment. Otherwise, he would have just been dead on the spot, I would assume. So after it had been just a little bit of time and Jenna thought, okay, the bears are for sure gone, she decides to yell out for help any way she can, hoping and praying that just somebody would hear. And lo and behold, a couple of hikers came by shortly after, and it was the hikers that went for help. And they said 20 park rangers, they ended up helping provide first aid initially, like first on the scene. And then an alert helicopter performed just like these short extractions. And they had to use like a manned sling. You've seen those videos, I'm sure, like on news stories where the rope's hanging down from underneath the helicopter with a man, a helmet, all the gear, and they're going after trying to help somebody, usually on a mountain, something like that. But that's exactly how they had to save Johan and Jenna. And 6 hours later, Jenna finally arrived at Kalispell Regional Medical Center. And news reports said that Johan actually also went there. But shortly after, because of his extensive injuries, he was then airlifted to another hospital that could better be able to treat him. It was a blessing that Jenna, after, being treated at the hospital, she was released in good condition. And Johan, like I said, he was airlifted to a hospital called Harborview. There, they discovered, or at least on the way when he was up in the helicopter, he had lost half of his blood, and his skull was actually exposed because, remember, his scalp was kind of peeled back in the attack. So they were just trying to get, then you worry about infections from an open area like that. So he needed help, and he needed it quick. It also said that despite all these horrific injuries, like during being rescued and airlifted to the hospital, he was conscious this whole time. He never lost consciousness. So the pain must have been horrific. Yikes. I can't imagine that. Once they got him stable, at the hospital, you got some more blood in him, all those first aid measures for something like that. A Dr. Nicholas Vetter, he transplanted a square foot of thin muscle, and he took it from the right side of his torso, and he used it to form like a new scalp for Johan. And it said over 3 years, Johan had to have 9, maybe even more than that, surgeries, but at least 9, just to reconstruct his face, the eye socket, and, from everything where that bear had torn away and bitten down. Jenna did go off to college, And she ended up graduating from UC Irvine and medical school at Columbia University. Johan, it said he speaks at trade shows for the makers of medical devices, and he stresses the importance of letting patients know what to expect. Whatever their journey is, whatever their injury, it's good to let the patient know, okay, here's what the future probably looks like, that kind of thing. And it said he also talks to medical audiences, kind of letting them know the same thing, the importance of that, and how to make medical experiences less stressful for the patient as well. So that's really cool that he's, using all that and his experience to, I guess, it didn't go into how he was treated or the outcome of his injuries. I don't know how that, but you got to think that maybe that influenced what he wanted to do once he was, once he had recovered. So just a really cool story, a terrifying one. I would love to go hiking one day. I think that would be great. And I once did some small hiking trails in Colorado, and that was cool, but that's all I can do. I don't think I'd ever go up on a mountain, especially not by myself. They always say, you should take protection to defend yourself from wild animals and from, you never know, some creepy characters are up there in the mountains. Who knows? But I digress. Anyway, I hope you guys liked the story, and it's fun learning these things. As I say every show, I enjoy researching these things and talking about them, and I like to share that with you guys. If you like these stories, just remember to like and subscribe and let me know what you thought. Your opinions, if you liked it, if not, or hey, if you have some ideas of some other miraculous stories that you'd like to hear about. And other than that, I'll see you guys for the next one. Thank you so much for watching.